was blown up. I was at the Marriott in Islamabad, Pakistan, and just a couple of months later, the Marriott Hotel was blown up. I had breakfast with Benazir Bhutto a month and a day at her home in Islamabad before she was assassinated. So we're dealing with people who are, it's not just America. They're going after all people who want peace and security in the world.
Next telephone call for Congressman Wilson is from St. Mary's, Maryland, Ann, Democrats line. Good morning, Ann.
Yes, good morning, C-SPAN. Good morning, Representative Wilson.
Good morning.
I agree with you, and here's what I don't understand. In testimony before Congress, both the Senate and the House, in Homeland Security and International Relations and Banking and Foreign Relations, and from the CIA, from the FBI, time and time again, they have testified that the Islamic terrorist financing is coming from countries such as Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, the United Arab Emirates countries. So what I don't understand and have never figured out is why don't we insist that the Islamic Arab countries send troops and that we go after the terrorism financing, because of all the countries in the world that the Islamic Arabs have gone into, such as Somalia, Yemen, so forth, Sudan. These countries have the most to lose because they will be the first countries that will have to, be overthrown. And I would really appreciate an answer. It's 9 years after the attacks of 9/11. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
And thank you. And you are very perceptive. Obviously, it's the financing of terrorism that just simply doesn't make sense from the Persian Gulf states, from Saudi Arabia. When I visit Qatar, Bahrain, Kuwait, Abu Dhabi, Dubai, UAE, I'm very grateful. I represent Hilton Head Island. I tell people that these countries look like Hilton Head Island on steroids. These are Arab populations, do want to live in the 21st century. And in fact, you are absolutely right. Osama bin Laden's first target is the royal family of Saudi Arabia. And so we should expect more from them in working to stop the financing of terrorism. What is frustrating on my visits there, everywhere you go, you see Islamic charities. And the vast majority of these Islamic charities are indeed working to help alleviate poverty within the region. But there are some that are fronts for terrorism. We must depend on our Persian Gulf allies, on our ally Saudi Arabia, for their own self-interest, for their own self-preservation, for their lives. They need to be working with us to uncover the level of terrorist financing.
We're talking about the progress of the war in Afghanistan after General Petraeus' report to the Senate. Let's listen to a bit of an exchange with General Petraeus and Congressman John McCain from Tuesday.
Could you clarify the difference between what you just said and what is quoted in the book that are direct quotes? Quote, I am confident we can train and hand over to the ANA in that time frame. Good, no problem. If we can't do the things you say you can in 18 months, then no one is going to suggest we stay, right? That's a quote from, apparently a direct quote from the President of the United States.
Well, Senator, I'm not sure it's productive to comment on conversations that took place in the Oval Office.
I understand that.
What I would come back to is what the President said at West Point. And that is something that I support, as I just told the Chairman. And that is that July 2011 is not the date where we race for the exits. It is the date where, having done an assessment, we begin a process of transition of tasks to Afghan security forces based on conditions.
Do you believe
and begin a process of a, quote, responsible drawdown of our forces.
What should American citizens take away from that about the length of commitment of American forces in Afghanistan?
And of course, that was the focus, Susan, too, yesterday of the House Armed Services Committee. And Congressman Buck McKeon, who's the ranking Republican, that was his first question and his first concern. And Secretary Flournoy, who's representing the administration, made it very clear that it's conditions-based. Even though the date may be established next year, the intent, and they explain what transition means. And transition means that it's not an abandonment. What it means is that the police, the Afghan National Police, the Afghan National Army, will be in the lead on combat operations. And we will not abandon the people of Afghanistan. We can't do that. If America does, it will put every city of our nation at risk. We already know, as General Petraeus testified yesterday, that the transnational terrorist will regroup in that country as a sanctuary to attack the United States, to attack India, to attack Europe. This is very clear. And so what we're doing is, I believe, taking action to protect the American people.
Next is Aiken, South Carolina.
Oh, wow.
Ray, Independent Line. Good morning, Ray. Ray, you there?
Hello, Mr. Wilson.
Good morning.
I question the fact that we have now discovered all these precious metals over there in Afghanistan, and the only country that's doing any the mining of it is China. How come China is always up on top? We have a senator from South Carolina, DeMint, that goes around the country expounding about how great China is, how the great workers are. And you got 300, 400,000 unemployed textile workers in South Carolina. But now, why can't you develop more onto these minerals? Why do the Afghanistan have to depend on poppy, which they're the world's biggest exporter of all these drugs?